it doesn't need a qualifier. When you're Canadian, there's only one kind of hockey. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm happy to be before you today, but I also come before you as a bit of an imposter. We're here in the government session, and I come before you not at all representing a government, but rather representing, as you'll see in a second, a large ensemble of mostly companies. In this plot, you see who many of our members. We today have nearly 170 different members, and we're very proud to have an extensive footprint across Europe, not only within the EU, 18 of the 27 EU countries represented in our associations, but also the neighboring European countries present, Israel, Switzerland, the UK, Norway, and even Turkey. QuIC, in a nutshell, is designed and is intended to be the voice of the European industry group. Our members are, for the most part, SMEs, small, medium enterprises that have launched over the past less than a decade and are growing very rapidly, and they're looking to be the next big forces in this global market. In order for them to succeed, lots needs to happen way beyond their technical skills and the technology that they're developing. It's about preparing the overall sector, and this is where QuIC comes in. This is where we try and add ourselves. With regards to this footprint, in a plot, in a figure, you can see the span that we have from the Nordic countries down to the many southern European countries, as far east as Israel and Turkey, west as Portugal and Ireland. So it's a very important footprint. And collectively, we cover these, among other topics. So in the top, you see three different well-known quantum areas: computing, which is very present and prevalent here at Q2B, but also communications and sensing. Not represented, but also here, the many enabling technologies. I think a lot of people, when they think of Europe, they think of photonics. It's true. But we also have experts in cryogenics, in cabling, in transductions, and many other capabilities, all part of our association. And when I was talking about preparing the sector, there are many different topics that are of common interest, and you see some of them on the lower half. Education, skills, making sure we have the right talent able to come over and to add themselves to this sector. Standardization. What components are ready today to be standardized? If you're an end user, you want to make sure that not only is this generation of quantum system adequate for your needs, but that the next one will be suitable as well and well used. Intellectual property, IP. Many of our companies, as I said, SMEs, spun out from academic teams. The knowledge that they bring on the business front might be a little bit weaker, so we try and help them and give them pointers on what is the best approach for IP. And then finally, the growth, which includes financing, which includes access to the right government aid, and we've heard two now coming up, sharing about what they're doing locally. And frankly, the Netherlands and the UK, quite impressive for how early they were in recognizing the importance that quantum would have in having their programs in place. For the rest of my talk, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm not going to be talking about QuIC specifically, but I'm going to be talking about the opportunity that Europe presents. And the reason why I want to bring this forward is because I think it's often overlooked, understated, and I think it's important to recognize the opportunity that lies here. On this slide, I try and show in a single picture what are some of the key attributes that really makes Europe a unique place when it comes to quantum technologies, and why I strongly believe that in the future, many of the top quantum companies in all branches will have European roots. Skills, very reliable industrial base, strong committed government support. As I said, we've just had now 2 presentations, and several leading standard organizations. And I think that collectively allows you to have the many key ingredients that you need for long-term success. QuIC, the association there to try and cultivate. Nobel Prize, I'm sure all of you have seen this. This year's Nobel Prize went to 3 Nobel laureates in quantum information science. 2 of those did their activities, did their work in Europe. Alain Aspect in France and Anton Zeilinger in Austria. Both of them have generated many generations now of scientists, researchers, and several of them, many generations down, are today members of companies. Professor Aspect even himself helped found some startups, Pascal notably, part of investment groups. So clearly, from the very top of that knowledge space that we hold in Europe, there's been this growth and this extending tree to really ferment the quantum sector. Publications. The US, in this survey done by McKinsey & Company, the US comes on top in terms of H factor, but I think it's important to note the position that the UK, the EU, Switzerland, Israel, all within the top 10, all very strong contributors to research happening. And added to that, the talent pipeline. I mentioned that moments ago. The access to the right skills, especially with this industry growing at the pace it is, will be essential. Europe today has, in absolute terms, the largest number of graduates with a quantum background. Add to that, the UK as well puts the entire continent well up in the lead. And that's also true on a per capita basis, with within the EU alone, over 230 per million inhabitants. So that means that there's a very strong pool of capabilities of knowledge that companies can pull from in order to support their growth. An interesting chart that was prepared by one of our members, QuIC, for those of you who know them, going not at the PhD level. We often talk about PhD holders in quantum, certainly important, but as the field grows more and more, it will be the engineers that will dominate. So how many engineering programs are there with a quantum essence to it? This plot was captured by QuIC, looks to put that in a single chart, and what you see is that, again, Europe is very, very strongly represented. In total, about 25 different master's programs in quantum, which I think is quite substantial at this stage. And then finally, in terms of what is present already, a strong government effort. If we put all of the different sources together, individual nations, the European Commission, we get to nearly 10 billion US dollars. So it's a very, very strong commitment, very strong message to try and push the industry forward. So when you put all of this, what is a little bit bewildering is the private investment, because that seems to follow a different trend. So what I show here is the country of investor relative to the country of investee. Information that was put together by BCG. And what you find is that Europe, EU investors, only just over half of them invest in the EU, but they are quite spread out over the rest. If you look at the US, it is the most financed areas, with many investors from across the world investing here. Europe, predominantly its own location, with a smattering elsewhere. The UK, also primarily UK, with a smattering from elsewhere. And I think this is mind-boggling. I personally think this is very surprising, and I think it creates an opportunity of sorts for investors who do dare to make the jump. And that's why I'm going to finish on these 3 points. So I think, quite sincerely, that Europe is a great opportunity for investors who are looking at quantum, considering their options, trying to see what are some of the most lucrative and best, most promising ambitions. Europe really has a lot to offer for the very reasons that I gave. The fact that at the moment such attention is placed elsewhere in the world, that it brings the overall valuation down. And what I've shown here is an excerpt from a recent Economist article that I'm quoting here. Tech investors can't get enough of Europe's fizzing startups, and it creates for a very promising future when it comes not only to quantum, but deep tech in general. If you're an entrepreneur, Europe has a lot to offer. This is a nice little destination resort. This is actually taken, the picture, is taken from the window of one of our members. So if you spoke to Enrique de Thasso or members of the Multiverse team, should you go to their office in San Sebastian, this is the nice view that you get. So not a bad location. Although a little cheeky, I think the point here is that it is a very welcoming place for entrepreneur. Europe has a lot to offer, not only in terms of quantum and the many advantages that I laid out, but simple things about how life is, whether it's safe, egalitarian cultures, many diversity in languages and cultures, and I think that offers a very attractive ensemble. So I thank you for your time, and happy to take any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Hi, my name is Mandy Birch. I had a question about who is eligible to join the coalition.
Yeah, good question. So the association is established in such a way that companies that are headquartered in Europe or with controlling entity headquartered in Europe are by design eligible. That said, everything is done by membership agreement or the General Assembly, meaning that should a company not be there, there's always room for exception, but so far such exceptions have not been the case. I might add one more point to that question if I have a moment.
You have plenty of time.
Oh, great. So we do, not shown here, but maybe if the slides come back up. QuiC as an association has worked very hard to establish connections with some of our partners beyond Europe. So we've looked to establish connections beyond Europe, and we have had relationships, and we're developing very strong connections to some of these international groups, QEDC, QStar, Quantum Industry Canada. So if you happen to be part of a company that is in one of those member associations already, there's a chance to be linked through the grouping that we're creating together.